I'm going to share now with everybody the analysis that no one has. There's some people have kind of hinted at it, but they don't really understand why third parties succeed. Very, very few people understand this at all.
Instead of conflict and aggression, here's governance built on grace. Welcome to Gracearchy with Jim Babka. Tucker Carlson has announced he wants to start a third political party. He doesn't want to run for president, but he wants to start the party. So he's joining Marjorie Taylor Greene and a bunch of other people who are in the third party business here. And we want to talk about that today. However, you probably haven't seen any of that coverage, which is, of course, great for us. Those who have commented on this are just as ill-informed as the people who take the photos of it. But we've got Jim. And before we get there, hey, Jim, come on board here because it's been a month since we actually said anything to anyone. And I don't want to apologize for that, but I want to give them some idea of what's been going on because you've been busy.
I have been busy. This is my travel time of year. And there's been 4 trips in just over 2.5 months. So, in fact, I'm packing for the 4th trip as we're sitting here recording.
Yeah, he really is. You can see it in the background.
So that is one of the things. But the other thing, and I just feel like I got to come clean and be honest here with everyone. I've had health issues this year. And I had one thing that happened to me that came completely out of the blue. It took a few weeks to clear up. It really did start to set me back. And part of what I've been doing has been playing catch up ever since. And then I had another thing that came along that was actually a multi-year problem that I actually finally decided to get treated. I didn't know what my problem was, but they discovered one. Once they saw my symptoms, they were like, "This is your problem," and it was pretty serious, honestly. But it took. I've had 2 surgeries, and I'm great. Like I'm better than I have been in a long time. Yeah. And I've got one more issue at least to go through, and that appointment's already scheduled. But I'm beginning to pick back up on momentum, and I'm looking forward to get back in the studio after. We got an interview scheduled as soon as I get back from this next trip, and we've got more people who've actually asked. We have some people who've actually asked to be on this show, so we're gonna be doing some really cool stuff. I'm looking forward to that, but I'm glad to be here today because this Tucker Carlson thing. You're right. The paparazzi does a better job of covering some political stories than this one has been covered, and I think this actually is an important thing. This is something that people should understand about our electoral system. It's stunning how little the people who cover it every day understand about how it actually works.
Yes. In our time together, I've learned so much that I didn't know before.
Yeah, if I'm just to judge by what the level of commentary has been on this so far. So, yeah, let's talk about Tucker.
Let's talk about Tucker.
Tucker Carlson.
So, what is your interest? This is such a one of those crazy questions because we're both third-party voters, right? But I'm going to say, so Jim, what is your interest in a third party?
And it is because and we're going to be doing more about this subject because I've rejoined the Libertarian Party.
Yes.
And so my interest is what happens in that space. And it is clear to me, as we will cover later in this episode, that the 2 parties have reached complete and utter failure. This was true to me 30 years ago, but it is now becoming obvious to everyone.
Yeah, it's kind of on the front page of every news story out there.
Right.
So you're uniquely qualified in this area in ways that many other people aren't, both in terms of education and knowledge, but you've done stuff as a third party political operative.
Yeah, I've been a county chair, a state chair, and I would boast that it was the most successful time in our state party's history. I was the press secretary for Harry Brown, and I got paid to work on 2 other campaigns besides that. So I have that background and experience. But more importantly, I have stayed very in touch with what's happened over there. I've been consulted by presidential campaigns over there. Because I have a specific set of skills, so to speak, or insights, and I am back in the party now in 2026 because I believe that those things are going to happen. And we did a show with Paul Darr and Stephen Nicalia, who are the recent former chair and vice chair. We did a show with them where you heard that I was actually called and consulted, and the part of the plan that the party's on right now, that pathway, happened through me. And so I'm watching closely and care deeply about that. And one of the guests we have coming will be from the new leadership of the Libertarian Party. That's coming very soon. So that's my background.
So there's something about the Libertarian Party that I didn't really grasp fully, but I'd like to go there for just a second. It's a simple answer. What third parties right now in America are qualified on the ballot in all 50 states?
None. The Libertarian Party is the only one that has gotten close and has done it repeatedly.
That's a bar you have to cross in order to be presidential, right?
We're going to spend a lot of time talking about that today.
Okay, so I just want to put that out there, because somebody who's starting a new party from scratch doesn't mean that they can actually get on the ballot and get elected anywhere. So,
Yep.
Right.
We'll
Okay, good. Glad we cleared that up. That's important for those of us who think outside the duopoly. Tucker's Till. I love this guy. He's looking for a home, right? But what do you mean, Tucker's Till?
Oh, a tell, like, you're sitting there playing poker with somebody and they give you signals like, oh, I've got a great hand. Oh, I've got a bad hand. This is like the idea that he was going to be involved in starting a third party and maybe even running for president is the worst kept secret in all of politics. He has been sending signals, little flares up for months that this was the direction he was headed. And I won't be surprised if he ultimately, even though he just recently denied it, ultimately decides that he has to run for president. It won't surprise me. There's been people that have been talking about it, and there's been some buzz about the thing. It's an interesting situation because he's very much a J.D. Vance guy. And I know Republican politics well enough to know that there are basically considered to be two frontrunners for the nomination in 2028, but they both need Donald Trump's blessing. And it seems at this hour, next hour could be different, that Marco Rubio has the inside track. That's the Secretary of State.
For the blessing.
But J.D. Vance and him are competing for the nomination. And J.D. Vance has staked some very interesting positions. And one of his allies is none other than Tucker Carlson. So, there's a way in which you can watch the media. A lot of people don't understand this. There's a way in which you can watch the media and you can know who's in whose camps. And you can start to say, oh, this is the message that camp wants to get going. And this is the counter message that this camp is delivering. And that has been the case. Now, it has been a long time in coming because Tucker really was disappointed with Israel and the war that they were waging in Gaza. It amped to a degree that was absolutely extreme when they made the decision, and Tucker tried directly and personally to convince President Trump not to attack Iran. When he did that and wasn't listened to, and then was read kind of out of the inner circle, that was the fracture and the tear. And ever since that point, which is the end of February, ever since that point, it was pretty obvious where this was headed. There's been repeated things that he has said. So just a couple weeks ago, he announced that he's quitting the GOP, right? Okay, well, if you're quitting the GOP, what does that mean? It means you're going to maybe be third party now. Oh, well, I am going to be involved in the formation and development of a viable third party. Okay, that's the current announcement. But there are already people who have already been on the interwebs saying out loud, he's running for president. And they've been saying this for months. He's denying it at the moment, but don't hold your breath. I really think he's in this.
He's not the only one. There's a whole bunch of people who are in that I'm going to start a third party kind of thing going on right now.
Yeah, and so we're going to get to another one in a moment, but I right now I want to focus in on Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah.
Because her political move, the way that she exited, surprised a lot of people. So most people don't just simply walk away from politics. That's very, very rare. They're hooked. They're in it. They enjoy the access and the power and so forth. But Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of walked out of she had wanted to go for higher office. Trump didn't endorse that. That was the beginning of their rift, and a series of policy disputes erupted. And I do believe she meant every one of them, just to be clear. But that wasn't what started the whole feud between the two of them. And in exiting, she has been basically an angry citizen. She has not given any hint of any kind of political future whatsoever until now, because people are now coming because of Tucker's announcement saying, well, are you the candidate?
Well, are you going to yeah, right.
Right. And so it'll be interesting to see whether or not she gets in all this. I do have a concern. She has built a very strong relationship, as I think a couple other people have, with Thomas Massey. And I'm going to explain why, as we get onto the show, I hope that Tom Massey isn't going to get involved in this, but because it won't be expressly libertarian.
He has, as of right now, it's been a month or so, has he said anything at all about his intentions other than to stay in elected representative? Okay.
No. He filed to run for Congress again.
He filed, yes.
But that allows him to do certain fundraising and campaign activities. That's the extent of it. That doesn't necessarily mean anything specific. And
Okay.
I don't know that he has made up his mind. In fact, from everything I can tell from the people I know, he hasn't made up his mind. He may not even be likely to do it. I don't know. But that's another subject for another day.
Now, Tucker the Third. I love this little heading, but I'm not exactly sure what you mean about it. And I know there's background here, so bring us up to speed.
You know, should he run, he's the guy that comes in third place because he's starting a new third party. And that's how this works. There are tons of bits of inertia in place. And I'm going to share now with everybody the analysis that no one has. There's some people have kind of hinted at it, but they don't really understand why third parties succeed. Very, very few people understand this at all. And a lot of it is legal. There are legal barriers to being able to participate in this system, and they're immense.
And one of them is like ballot qualification. What are the others?
Which is ballot is I want to focus on ballot qualification because it's not insignificant. So we're all familiar with the laws of supply and demand.
Sure. Well, we hope. I mean, I better be careful. You and I are.
Okay. If you increase the demand for something, the price will go up. Okay. That's pretty much a very basic. That's all we need.
Economics 101.
That's the limited analysis we need for the point I want to make next, which is that if there are more people coming and asking petitioners, which is a rare skill, you would think it would be a common thing, but hardly anybody wants to stand out in the sweltering sun, get chased away by property owners and law enforcement, trying to collect signatures in a very specific way so that they get paid for those signatures from absolute complete strangers. So this doesn't get done by volunteers. And everyone who smokes that crack and says, oh, our idea is so popular that we're going to have volunteers collecting these signatures. So the petitioners know this. They travel from state to state. They're also like gypsies. It's not a job you can do from home. You have to not only venture out of your community, you got to venture out of your state and even your region to be able to stay employed in this line of work.
And this is expensive. I mean, expensive for the people who hire the petitioners, right?
Unbelievably so. So if you want to start a party and all you want to do is get your candidate on for president, you're probably staring at a $20 to $25 million bill. I'll explain why in just a second.
And that's just to cross over into the territory, right?
Right.
That's not to do anything else. No advertising, no PR, no, just to cross over the territory.
Just to get to the start line.
Yeah,
that's what it's going to cost you. So about $25 million, okay? And I'm saying that it's that high in part because there will already be two parties, at least out in the field collecting signatures.
Yep.
Okay?
In addition to you,
in addition to you, Mr. Carlson.
Yep.
Okay. So Elon Musk, do you remember him saying, I'm going to create the America Party?
Oh, yeah, right after the Doge thing imploded.
Yes. Okay. Well, he didn't do it. Okay. I don't know if he was having what he was taking that day, but he never followed through. And chances are the reason he never followed through is he found out what the bill was. Okay.
That's chump change for him. Why did he decide against it?
Because it just gets you to the start line and nothing else happens after that.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
nothing. It is not chump change to him. He has an incredibly high net worth, but that doesn't mean he can afford to just throw 25 million, 100 million, 150 million like water all over the place. He does have to make some choices. And it's a lot for not accomplishing anything yet. All you have is your name on the ballot at that point.
Right.
Okay. Kanye. You remember when he ran for president?
Oh, yeah. That was a fun story for about 30 seconds.
Okay. I don't know how many states. I didn't go look this up before I got on. I'm operating from memory here, but I believe he got on fewer than 11 states. And there's only about 8 that are easy. Okay.
So we got on 8 easy ones and 3 harder.
Yeah. He didn't get that far, is what I'm saying. Okay. Yeah. Do you remember Howard Schultz of Starbucks?
He ran for president?
Well, he said he was going to. He launched an exploratory effort in 2020, and then he announced, and he's my favorite. This is my all-time favorite. He announces, I have decided to abandon this campaign and spend more time with my family, which is the thing people usually say when there's a scandal.
Yeah.
Okay. He found out the bill. They started trying to do the work. He found out the bill. Okay. And just stopped.
Yeah.
How about RFK?
Oh, now that's fun.
Okay. So
he was going to co-opt the libertarians and take them to the Republicans, right?
So RFK does 3 things. You just mentioned the first one. So after finding out how hard it is, he's like, oh, who has ballot status that might take me? Oh, the libertarians.
Libertarians.
So he goes and he talks to the libertarians, and they weren't going to play ball with them. So then he's like, okay, what do I do now? He put a billionaire on his ticket. And she was going to write the checks to cover the ballot access. And she was willing to do it. And then finally, he made a deal with Donald Trump for a cabinet spot. He traded to get a cabinet spot, which isn't technically legal, but it's exactly what happened. We now know this. It's a matter of historical fact.
Yep.
Due to another current event. He ran into this very same barrier. So I'm suggesting to you that Elon, Kanye, Howard Schultz, and RFK all ran into this barrier. And Tucker, who, by the way, apparently has as much knowledge about our electoral process as the paparazzi, going to go run his head first into it too. Okay? Now, I know that they're not going to succeed at this, and I have a secret code that tells me who will succeed at this. His name is Bill Redpath. I've known Bill for 30 years. Bill's a Libertarian Party of Ohio member at the moment. So he doesn't live that far from me. He's running for Senate in Ohio. He is a ballot access expert, and he's not the only one, but he's the most prominent within the Libertarian Party, which has done this over and over. And you asked me earlier, where are they at? Well, they have repeatedly done 50 state ballot status, and they've done 49 repeatedly as well. And the law has become very, 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 very difficult in New York. That's now the worst state to get on the ballot. And that's a lot of electoral votes. And there are other states that are very, very difficult. So it's to get to 47 and 48 is almost as good as getting 50, because there are a couple of states that are just backbreakingly hard. But to navigate all of the various rules that have been put in place, and every state has its own set of rules. And some of them are easy, and some of them are hard, and some of them are obscenely, ridiculously difficult. And to know how to do all of that, to allocate the resources correctly, to move the people around, to organize your best volunteers, because the Libertarian Party actually has volunteers, because they have a cause. They have a real cause. And they have people who've done this kind of activity before. So when Tucker Carlson starts up and he's going to reach out to a bunch of people who've done nothing but go to rallies, and they're going to be asked to go do this thing that's no fun, and they ain't going to do it. And they're not going to do it just for him. And they're not going to do it for just one election, right? Yep. There's not enough level of commitment there and experience to get this done. So it just isn't going to happen. I'm going to throw one caveat out before we're done. I'm going to share with you something that I think is coming, and it's possible it's coming this election. But up till now, if the rules are the same as they have been right up through 2024, it is not happening.
Why don't these third-party candidates actually come to the Libertarian Party? And Tucker's not a libertarian.
Well, it's interesting. He's talking about starting a third party, and he's not mentioning the third party.
Exactly.
So he knows who the libertarians are. Now, let me say that again. He was one of the people who was a spokesperson and supporter from Celebrityville for the Ron Paul campaign. So he knows what a libertarian is. He was starting to flirt with calling himself such a thing in 2010, 12 timeframe, Tea Party era.
Yeah.
like others who at the time were doing it, but he's not. And I don't think he fits. I think there are two huge issues. First, he loves Elizabeth Warren economically. So libertarians are free market. They believe in limited regulation. Elizabeth Warren loves regulation. They believe in profitability. Libertarians do. Elizabeth Warren thinks there must have been a crime that was committed if somebody other than her profited.
Yeah, it turns a profit, right?
She's allowed to profit, by the way. She's profited immensely from being a United States senator. She has some strange ideas about trade. She has she is enamored with unions. Libertarians, by and large, don't really care for unions. There are some that think that they're viable, but the way they work, they tend to be much more part of a left political economic scheme. There's a number of different things. He believes in a lot of the things she believes in, and he's advocated for her value and says that she's saying some of the most important things in economics. Now, he doesn't talk about that much because he's a culture warrior. Most of what he talks about is culture warrior stuff that, by the way, he and Elizabeth Warren would disagree on profoundly. And one of those things is immigration.
Yeah, he's on the wrong side of this one.
Well, and I'm at pains to make this clear. You can be a libertarian and not be pro-immigrant. You could say that I want to restrict travel across the borders. You would still fit into that category, that tent of being libertarian, because you hold a variety of other libertarian positions. But you cannot be anti-immigrant and call that the libertarian position, because it's not. Okay? We did a whole episode where we spoke about this too, and we explained the tent and how it works. And we explained that you can still be a libertarian and not have a libertarian view on immigration. There is a such thing as a libertarian view, and it would just be that you make an exception in this case. This is the one place where you're not really that libertarian. Tucker's nowhere near that. He actually has said flat out he wants immigration stopped. He doesn't think that what's gone on is a big problem up to this point with ICE and all the rest of it. He's not commented hardly at all on it. Even when Matthew Peretti was killed, right? Like when those shootings happened in Minneapolis, Renee Good, he didn't get all excited about that stuff. No, far from it. He has said instead, they just should stop everybody coming in. Oh, that's a bad idea. Okay. And it's not the libertarian position.
Definitely.
Now, there is a recent kerfuffle inside the Libertarian Party involving a caucus called the Mises Caucus.
Oh, you're talking about the Reno takeover and all of that now.
Yeah. And I can imagine a lot of the people who were attracted to that portion of the movement being attracted to Tucker. Not all of them, because some of them are really, really solid libertarians, and they recognize what I just said about Elizabeth Warren, and they recognize even what I just said about immigration. But there will be people who are attracted to it because they wanted a libertarian culture war, if that could be such a thing, which is so weird to me. They may be more attracted to his views there and his very correct views on war. He believed that the Iran attack was wrong. It was unconstitutional. It was unnecessary. It was going to be counterproductive. All of that stuff was true. It was true beforehand, by the way. For anyone who, there's been all kinds of special pleading that's been going on about this particular case, about how it's a radical Islam country and the people there wanted it overthrown. None of that stuff changed the fundamental dynamic that our government, our politicians should not have attacked that country. And it shouldn't have happened the way it happened. The United States has lost. They've lost that war. As I'm sitting here right now, they've lost. They tried to settle on an agreement that was actually worse conditions than the conditions that existed previous to February. And so Tucker was right about that. So there's going to be an attraction principle. Now, to the people in the party, I'm just going to say this. That means that those of you that don't want the Mises Caucus there, if Tucker goes and sets up a third party, those people will probably leave and go join his party. And you may cheer that. On the flip side, I can actually imagine that the people behind the Mises Caucus, the people who were the leaders of it, might be actively reaching out to him at this very moment, doing exactly what you suggested a few minutes ago, Bill, and inviting him to come join the Libertarian Party and to take it over, saying that, listen, if you come here, we'll help you take over the party. We've already done it once, but we didn't have the right presidential candidate at the time. It might work now if you came here. And I think these are both concerns for the future of the Libertarian Party.
Sure, yeah, they could take it either way.
And that's why I'm hoping Tom Massey's not involved in this particular effort. I hope if Tom Massey decides to run, he chooses to run as a libertarian. It is his most natural home. He's not the purest of libertarians, but he is inside the tent. He doesn't share Elizabeth Warren's economic views. He has not expressed public loathing to stop all immigration and increase all ICE efforts. So we will see, but that's my hope not.
Okay, we're going to take a little break here just for a little education on what it takes to be, in a presidential campaign here. So from experience, Jim can do this off the top of his head like nothing. So here we go, folks.
Okay. We're going to cover two things that I think will help everybody understand what we're going to say next, because I'm going to share an innovative prediction with everyone. And I think if you understand these two things, they will help you tremendously understand the thing I'm going to say at the end. Candidates who are incumbents have something called a war chest. It is a large amount of funds raised for their election. They're already the entrenched incumbent. They're already solid in that position. And the main reason they collect it and build up the fund is to scare off competition. So the way
so-and-so has so many millions already in their war chest. You hear this all the time.
The bigger that war chest, the more they scare off the opposition. This is particularly true in congressional races. If you want to defeat an incumbent, this is the secret. I'm going to give you the secret right now. This is the secret. This is something I've said this, been saying this for 15 years on radio interviews, and I've said it here on Gracearchy before, and I still don't hear people repeating it, but it is solid as a rock, okay? You have to get the incumbent to start spending that money. And by the way, the more they start spending the money in their war chest, the better your chance to win.
Okay.
So why am I saying that? I'm saying that because the marginal value of campaign dollars is highest to the challenger. And the first dollars the challenger spends are valuable. And the next level that they spend, and the more and more that they spend, the better. The incumbent already started off at a high level. They've won the seat. They are in a position where they can basically only go downward. When they start spending the money, what they're attempting to do is literally resist gravity. They're being pulled down, and they're trying to stop the fall. So what a challenger is attempting to do with their money is increase support, and they start off with next to nothing. So as they spend, their support goes up. But it's a trade-off. It's not one, if only one person can have a slice of the pie, right? So every percentage that the challenger's gaining, the incumbent's losing. And to stop that slide, they will start spending money. And there will even become a point in many of their campaigns where the money they're spending actually worsens their condition. This spending actually hurts them. This happened all the way back in 1994 to the Speaker of the House. His name was Tom Foley. Tom Foley lost to a guy who only raised and spent a little over $400,000, and most of it towards the end of his campaign. But every ad campaign he put out saw his poll numbers go down. Tom Foley's numbers went down. So you have to get the incumbent to spend their money, and the more they spend, the better your chance of winning, which means you have to have the ability to raise money. Now, third parties have a hard time raising money in our campaign finance system. Contributions are limited in size to the party. They're limited in size to the candidate. There are other schemes you can do, but super PACs, which is the Citizens United thing, cannot do ballot access. This is what RFK ran into, because if they could have done it through a super PAC, bam, they might have been able to pull it off. But as of now, the way the laws works, they cannot do that. Now, there was just a Supreme Court case that came out just at the end of this term, just days before we're sitting here talking, that has improved the amount of coordination that parties can do with campaigns and how much money can be spent. But it still won't be enough to solve all of the ballot access issues that Tucker's going to face. So he's going to have to use regulated, limited, disclosed dollars. People aren't going to want to be on that list. The people that have major money, they don't want to show up on that list because they don't want to offend the parties that have the power. Mm-hmm. And they're not going to give money until it's like credit, right? It's hard to get credit when you're young and broke, but it's real easy when you don't need it anymore, right?
Yeah.
And that's when the money starts to arrive, is when he doesn't need it. So he has two things. He's got to pull a sled up the hill just to get in the race. And then when he gets to where he thinks is the top of the hill, he's in the race now, $25 million in, on limited dollars. Because even Elon won't be able to solve his problem. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The next thing he's got to do is figure out how to fight with these people. And it will be hard. Now, there, he can use some super PAC dollars. And I want to confuse everybody. I just want to make clear, they're going to have to spend a lot of their initial hard-earned grassroots donations trying to get on the ballot. And that is not where you want to be spending it because it won't empty the opponent's war chest.
Right. I see what you're saying. So all the money he's got to spend in public up front with names and limits and regulations just to get on board is a political nightmare. Mm-hmm. Followed by, if you manage that, you can raise some real money to make the candidacy happen. Mm-hmm. That's a problem. It's two problems. It's two big problems.
Yep.
So no wonder he's coming to like the established third party and saying, hey, can I help? Now, I'm making a big assumption there that he is doing that, but I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be and why the Mises Caucus would not be extending that kind of opportunity for conversation. In my mind, it's coming.
We'll see.
We'll see. But he's not the candidate that libertarians want.
Right. Probably not. So the second piece of education that I think we need to get to here is Citizens United. Because it's been, all of a sudden it's been talked about. Like it for a while, nobody was talking about it. But there's such a high level of dissatisfaction with the Republicans and Democrats right now. That level is so incredibly high. It's higher than at any point in our lives. I shouldn't say it for sure. I don't know what it was like during Vietnam, but in this era, in my adult life, let me put it that way, in your adult life, there has not been a time where the confidence in these parties and in the political institutions has ever been this low. And a symptom of that is people are belly aching about a symptom, literally, right? So, you get a little sore, on your skin, and you think, oh, well, that, I got to do something, put some cream on that. If you start blaming all of the problems that you have in your life, your entire state of being, on that little sore, and you think, if I could just get rid of that sore, everything would be better. You're not looking at what's underlying the problem, right?
Right.
What is underneath that? And what I'm suggesting is that Citizens United sticks out as an easy scapegoat to blame for the failure of our political system, which was, we will get into in another time, completely predictable and certain. But Citizens United is not the problem.
That's not the problem.
It is an opportunity. Now, we've talked about Citizens United on this show multiple times, but I want to talk about it again. I have direct involvement in this case. Number one, because Citizens United, the organization, was one of my allied partners in the case that I organized that we took all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, challenging the McCain-Feingold law. Our lead plaintiff was Ron Paul. We were Paul v. FEC. We got consolidated into the McConnell v. FEC, which is about 11 different plaintiff groups. And we challenged the law directly, a special 2-hour hearing at the Supreme Court. I was there for it. We have Citizens United was one of they were an important partner in our particular case. Years later, they filed their own case, a separate case, having to do with whether or not they could do something that is in the legal parlance called independent expenditures. And I want everybody to understand this. I have every single person to this day, without exception, that I have ever had a conversation with about this, does not know what Citizens United was actually about. They don't know. And so I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you the answer to that question. And the next time you hear somebody belly aching about this little sore on the skin that is not really the cause of your problems, I want you to ask them if they know what Citizens United was about and what it did. Here's what it was about. It was about a movie. It was called Hillary. They wanted to broadcast this movie on DVD. They wanted to distribute it in DVD, and they wanted to put it in theaters. And this was going to require them to publish. This was going to require them to broadcast. And those activities are restricted under the campaign finance laws. They said, nope, if you're going to talk about someone who's a candidate, you have to file for independent expenditures and follow all the requirements and rules for that donations to the effort cannot be tax deductible like they are at your C3 organization. These efforts are not considered educational, they're considered campaign, so contribution limits and reporting requirements begin to take effect, and that means it's harder to raise the money necessary to get that out. Every organization that you support in the nonprofit space is there to help broadcast or project your message, and you get to choose how much you're going to support them. They'll do the work regardless of how little or much you pay. Somebody will come along and help pay more, and others will pay still more to help get it done. That's how charitable donations work, but they magnify your voice. They help give you power. So the organizations you support should be able to spend money advancing their cause. And the answer to things that you don't like being said is to respond to them by coming along and starting an organization that will respond to it. Both of you are playing a role in something we allegedly call a democracy to educate each other. And this is part of how we get the word out. And folks, grow up. It costs money to get information out there. Even this little podcast here costs us some amount of money. Bill and I were talking right before we came on air about some changes we might have to make, and that part of the considerations were the budget for doing so. And so it costs money to do that, and you need to be able to do that. And so Citizens United is an opportunity, because what it means is the organizations that you support have the ability to gather together and pull together donors, and without limitation, raise as much money as they want to get their word out. And you know who hasn't taken full advantage of this? Any third parties, including the Libertarian Party. I am at pains to describe this because in 2016, Gary Johnson ran for president. He had Bill Weld on the ticket. They were getting national press coverage. If the people who believe in these values had assembled, and there are plenty of them that have the money, if they had assembled beforehand and said, when these gentlemen get the nomination, we're going to hit the ground running. And they could have, this was the plan that I advocated. I wrote about this. It's in the appendix of a book called The Plan for a Libertarian America. That's not the full title, but that's most of it. It's being distributed right now. It's on loan to the Libertarian Party itself. They're distributing it for free, by the way, to people who sign up. And in the plan, we include this story that I'm telling you right now. If they had chosen to support him and said, here's the strategy I would have followed, Gary should be in the debates. Gary should be in the debates. Why isn't Gary in the debates? Why is Gary being excluded by the debates? You remember the barriers we talked about earlier?
Oh, sure.
Well, here's another one.
That's another one.
They've set an arbitrary basis. They said you can't get in until you're at 15% in 5 polls, and 1 or 2 of those polls don't even bother to mention you by name. The others that started mentioning him, he got up in states into the low double digits. And if that was reported and all 5 were doing it, maybe enough momentum would have accrued to get him into that position. But no, they put the brakes on it. They stopped asking about him. It's rigged. This is another part of the rigging of the system to make sure that it favors 2 parties. This thing is so rigged. Citizens United, if it had been used properly, and I'm just pleading with people who have resources right now, you could make sure that the next Libertarian candidate gets wall-to-wall coverage too. You could make sure that they're getting the attention, because the earliest dollars are the ones that matter the most. They are the ones that matter. The challenger dollars matter more than the incumbent dollars because they already have achieved saturation. And I don't understand why nobody understands these things. I don't. But the next time somebody asks you about Citizens United, ask them, what was that case about? Because all the critics, all the people that are belly aching about it right now, don't know.
They don't know. It's time for your major innovative prediction, Jim.
This show is brought to you by the Zero Aggression Project. Zap newsletter subscribers get alerts when each episode is released. The Zap website is also the pathway by which you can contact us by email and support the show. This program operates thanks to tax-deductible Zap contributions, and we appreciate your support. So, zap the state, and have a nice day.
Have you got do we have the background? Can people grab this now if you actually reveal what it is?
I think so. The Democratic National Party is hollow. And the hollowness is being demonstrated right now. They had years of extra time. They did not have their reckoning. The Republicans got a reckoning. They are now captured. The Republicans are a captured party. They're basically controlled by one man. Okay. And that happened because of a variety of things, but I mostly lay the blame at the bailouts and the financial collapse that happened in 2007 and 8 and 9 and 10, that recession, that property devaluation that everybody went through. I believe that was kind of the end of basically kind of the modern neoliberal pact, right? The idea that we had built something special, a city on a hill that wasn't like the communist nations. All the energy from our righteous zeal of the Cold War had kind of got sapped at that moment. And people began reconsidering this entire experiment, and they were upset. And so you had a Tea Party on one side and you had Occupy on the other. And that very quickly manifested itself by 2016 and Donald Trump. Okay. The signs were already there that it was coming based on how well Ron Paul did, but Donald Trump comes along and makes it very, very clear. That's because of the Tea Party. But the Occupy thing never got to come to full fruition. Bernie Sanders was there and it couldn't come to full fruition. Why? Well, because the Democratic Party is not democratic. They have rules that are written to make sure democracy don't happen inside the party. And those rules work so well that they were able to keep putting up the old kinds of candidates. They were able to put up a Hillary Clinton and a Joe Biden. They were able to get away with that.
Not any longer.
They're running out of time. And I just want to point out two things, both of which have happened within the last couple of weeks as I'm sitting here. One, Democratic Socialists are winning. They're a third party, by the way, that has infiltrated the Democratic Party. They're hollowed out. And it's not just Mom Domney in New York. That's not the only place this is happening. It's happening in Denver. It's happening in Los Angeles, right? Mm-hmm. There are other candidates showing up, and they are winning, and they are beating incumbents to get those jobs. They are beating frontrunners to get those jobs. The Democratic Party, what do they have to offer? Well, so this past week, Anna Paulina Luna, you know that I follow what she's doing her community committee because I care about the JFK assassination. They were talking about MK Ultra. Every one of the hearings that she's done, the Democrats have brought somebody there to try to do some anti-Trump thing that is completely disconnected from what the work of the committee is. They've always put somebody in testifying there, right? So we have in this case, we have two experts on MK Ultra, right? And then they bring in somebody who's basically just there to pee on Trump.
Yeah, grandstand on.
And they have nothing to offer. That's the hollowness of who they are. They've got nothing to offer. And so it's no surprise that they're in trouble. And it's no surprise that it's obvious. I don't even have to explain that the RNC is captured. That's as obvious as the nose on our face. We see it on the news every day. We saw it in Tom Massey losing that race. But there's one more party I want to talk about. And as much as I am in favor of them and I'm enjoying being involved again and I'm enthusiastic about what they've got going, the Libertarian National Committee is still a walking contradiction. It's a collectively managed organization where no one truly has skin in the game, and institutional memory does get lost as a result. Some of the best activists get upset and leave because they try to do something and people who aren't working can get in their way. Right? We do everything. The party's obsessed with bylaws and fairness rules and all the rest of this stuff. And that lack of skin in the game makes them less effective than they could be. It's part of the reason why they didn't figure out how to do what I just described moments ago in 2016 with super PACs. They still haven't figured it out here, 10 years later. There's another way to do this. And it hasn't been tried. And it probably wasn't possible due to all the legal rules that existed up until now. It's probably still prohibitively difficult. But the media environment's changed, and that's what Tucker Carlson's banking on. So here's the big, major, innovative prediction. I believe we are going to soon see a day where there will be bespoke parties, boutique parties. What do I mean by bespoke? Bespoke means you go to the tailor and you get a suit that fits you. And in every other area of your life, the things that you buy fit you. More and more things, and there are more and more drinks to choose from. There are more and more software programs and apps and just all these things that are designed to cater more and more to you and your specific wants, needs, and desires. All over the place, except for one area, politics. Here we have two old dinosaur parties, and you have to give up your identity and join as part of the team. And they're going to do a whole bunch of things you don't like, but the sales proposition is the other guys are worse. That's all they have to offer. And I can't imagine, like, my generation grew up with this and has kind of accepted it. Definitely the generations before me have grown up with it and accepted it. But are millennials accepting it? And even more so, the generations coming behind, my kids' generation, are they going to settle for this? And I believe the answer is no. I believe we're coming up on a day, and maybe it's arrived. Maybe Tucker's going to step into that historic moment. I don't know. But we have arrived at a moment where there will be parties that are entrepreneurial. Someone will own them. It won't be a large committee of people. It won't be meeting in convention to figure out what they're doing. There'll be a handful of people running the show. Now, our laws are going to make this very, very difficult because the communism of this entire structure is written into the law in some places. But there's probably ways around that. And somebody who's industrious and smart and has the right lawyers might be able to figure out how to put such a party together. And maybe even challenge some of the laws, given that there have been 4, not just Citizens United, there have been 4 major campaign finance cases coming out now, counting this year, that have reversed the trend of greater regulation. They've been going the other way towards more freedom, more choice, more ability to contribute and participate, spend more money. And can someone do this? So I have an example. This is already happening. It's just not happening here, but it's happening in a place close to home, so to speak. In the UK, Nigel Farage runs Reform UK. And the deal is he has shares. He literally has shares. He owns a controlling interest in this political party. And this is a place where they went from having 3 parties that were basically players to now a 4th. So all this talk about winner take all elections and how it's hard to get your people into positions and yada, yada, yada. Now they have a 4th political party. There are some things that are slightly different about the UK system. They would be worth touching on at some other time. But I just want to say the idea of having this boutique party, I was thinking, hey, this is the way we got to do it. We have to deal with this collectivist issue, because I was just thinking this from pure economic, my own libertarian instincts. Why are we structured this way as a party? And then someone pointed out to me, did you know what Nigel Farage is doing? I'm like, what? I go look at it. He literally owns shares. It's his party. Now he can offload those shares to increase the number of people that are involved in his party and whatnot, but they're already successful. They're already the 4th main party. It's not a third party situation like here where we're not getting any of the seats. They actually are getting seats. They're in the government. There's embarrassments going on in these other parties every single day of the week. There's so many that they're not even news anymore.
Oh, yeah.
But,
well, they're led by people who are embarrassing.
Yeah.
So, hey, at the risk here of offering Tucker Carlson a ticket to the presidency, does the Nigel Farage model have a chance at grabbing hold and working here in America?
So I began wondering this very same thing myself. That's why earlier I said, if the old rules apply, they're done. This is not going to happen. He won't get past go. He will drop out, just like faster than RFK did. By the way, I'm on record. We did an instant grace. It's the most listened to instant grace. We do nothing to publicize those things. Where I said that RFK had already dropped out of the race.
Yeah,
he went independent.
Yep.
As soon as he announced he was leaving the Democratic run, I came and sat here in this studio and said, campaign's over, folks. And everybody, people got mad at me, right? Oh, how could you say that? He's going to go run this independent campaign. No, I already knew all the rules. But let's say that Elon and Marjorie Taylor Greene and who knows who else gets involved, and they hire the right lawyers and they play the right games and they do the right things to provoke the right lawsuits and legal actions, and they get in front of the right judges as they do it, and they begin putting the money together. Now, by the way, there's going to be some serious financial risk on the players that play at the highest level of this pool, because violating some campaign finance laws comes with penalties that can be like treble damages type things. So it's immense. So they may find themselves in really bad situation if they play the game, right? So there's risk to this game. But I think that the American people might be ready to respond to this, because we had 3 channels and that kept us in 2 parties. And now we have lots of channels, hundreds of them, and the 3 no longer matter. You know who else is starting to matter less and less? The 2 parties. So are we maybe crossing a line? My hesitancy isn't the legal situation. I think that people, given the kind of coverage that I've seen of this story, are fundamentally stupid when it comes to understanding what's going on here. And they'd rather focus on the little sore than at the big thing. And so they'll blame Citizens United instead of recognizing, wait a minute, there's an opportunity here. And Citizens United is part of the source of that opportunity. And if they figure that out, then yes, the boutique or bespoken political party could become a legitimate thing, even for Tucker Carlson.